Hey there, race fans. It's Race Day Top 5 with me, Frank 5. Atlanta Motor Speedway. Boy, it's been a challenge in the past. Old surface, tires wearing out, and some close finishes in the past. But yesterday, we returned to Atlanta Motor Speedway on a newly reconfigured racetrack. Different banking, different width of the racetrack, and very intense close action, which resulted in our 5th different winner of the season. Let's talk about all the craziness at the new Atlanta Motor Speedway. Number 1, William Byron captures his 3rd career NASCAR Cup Series victory and his first win of the 2022 season, winning yesterday's Folds of Honor QuikTrip 500 at Atlanta, holding off challenges from everyone behind and being the first one over the start-finish line as our 5th win of the season, holding off Ross Chastain, Kurt Busch, Daniel Suarez, and yes, you heard me right, Corey LaJoie finished in the 5th spot. William Byron's had very good speed to start the season. Let's face it, this 24 car has been fast everywhere we've gone. The problem is the finishes really haven't been there for the 24 team. Now, Las Vegas, that was completely different. They had great speed all day, they led a lot of laps, and they finished up in the top 5. They had the speed. They had speed at Daytona, but they wrecked out at the end of stage 1. They had speed at Auto Club. They were the 2nd best car to Tyler Reddick, but he got caught up in that incident with Tyler Reddick when Reddick cut down a tire and ricocheted back into Byron, taking them both out. And at Phoenix last week, they were in top 5, but they went off on the handling in the final stage, and that fell all the way back to the top 20. But yesterday at Atlanta Motor Speedway, William Byron was fast, literally fast. He led the most laps, over 100 laps yesterday. He won stage 1, and he was holding off those guys the final 20-30 laps, running the high side. They're all lined up together, and guys tried to debate about whether to go now or wait until the final lap. Byron did his best with his spotter guiding him and his crew chief, Rudy Fugle, just keeping an eye on everything. And in the last lap hit, and those guys tried to make moves, Byron blocked left and right and held off all the challenges while those guys were running side by side. And coming to the start-finish line, he was the first to cross and is our new 5th winner of the 2022 season. It is great to see William Byron. He's a really good kid, and Rick Hendrick really believes in this kid that he can be one of the next future stars of our sport and be another champion, just like he's made champions out of Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson. It could happen to William or Alex Bowman, but William Byron yesterday showed that he is going to be a guy to be battling for this championship this year. I mean, let's say this, him and Rudy Fugle, the combination between these two, it's so underrated. It doesn't get enough recognition. These two have been together in the past. As mentioned, they were teamed up in the Truck Series on KBM Motorsports, Kyle Busch Motorsports. They were dominant. They led a lot of laps. They won the most races that year. However, in the round of 6 elimination race at Phoenix, they blew up, and that prevented them from making it to Championship 4, which sucks because they would go on to win the final race of the 2016 season before he propelled himself up to Xfinity in 2017, where he'd go on to win the championship that year. But William Byron has come a long way from where he was as a rookie in 2018, where they struggled. But then they made the playoffs in 2019, and then in 2020 paired him up with Chad Knaus, or year 2 with Chad Knaus, actually. And he was just so good in 2020, where he'd go on to get his first career win at Daytona. And then last year, they paired him up with Rudy Fugle after Knaus decided to step aside to become the managerial role for Hendrick Motorsports as far as their engine and car department. And him and Rudy Fugle just knocked out of the park last year by winning at Homestead. They didn't win any other races the rest of the year, but they were still strong enough. And so far this year, they are very strong, and I think they are a team to look out for come playoff time. So all the Hendrick cars have won now. The only one that hasn't is Georgia homeboy Chase Elliott, who had a nice 6th place finish yesterday. But William Byron and Rudy Fugle, attaboy to you guys. You're in the playoffs. Ran well yesterday. Very smart race, and I got a feeling that this is the first of many wins, hopefully, this season. Hopefully, William Byron can have a multi-win season later this year. Number 2, Trackhouse Racing. My goodness. They are for real. They are a legitimate top 10 team right now. They are fast. Ross Chastain, so fast yesterday. Led a lot of laps, running up at the front. Ran into an issue in the early part of the race where he caught a right rear tire and knocked the outside wall, but not too severely. He was able to continue. He fell a couple laps down, but he got all of them back, worked his way back up inside the top 10, and put himself in position towards the very end to try to win the race. But the side-by-side action he had with a lot of guys, and Christopher Bell tried to make a pass on the backstretch on the bottom and the inside of the racetrack, below the white and red line, which is an out of bounds. And therefore, instead of Christopher Bell finishing second, he got penalized the last car on the lead lap, so Chastain was rewarded with a second-place finish. That's 3 weeks in a row that Ross Chastain has been on the podium in the NASCAR Cup Series. The win's coming for Chastain. And again, as I mentioned last week, it's not a matter of if Ross Chastain wins a race. It's a matter of when he wins a race. It's coming. The question is, can you minimize the mistakes had he not had the tire problem earlier in the race? We could have been talking about a different story. We could have been talking about Ross Chastain possibly leading those last few laps instead of William Byron, and would have been Chastain winning the race. But still, a great comeback by the one team in Chastain. They're just having a lot of fun right now. And Daniel Suarez, the last couple of weeks, ever since their Fontana run, they had speed, but not really the type of finishes, though last week they had a 9th place finish. Yesterday, they ran in the top 5, top 10 a lot. They led a couple of laps. They were strong. They ran with the big boys all day long. I mean, I can't call these guys underdogs anymore. They are legitimate contenders. And Suarez got a 4th place finish, as I mentioned. This guy has been so good to watch this season. He's in a team that he belongs. I mean, as I mentioned in the past, he's been flip-flopping between teams since he entered the Cup Series. In 2017, drove for Joe Gibbs Racing after Carl Edwards retired. Then after 2 years with the team, he was dumped in favor of Martin Truex, but signed up for Shoutouts Racing. And his first year with the team was pretty good, but the Shoutouts wanted more, so he was left to go to Gaunt Brothers. And let's face it, there was not a lot of luck for him. Of course, he missed the season opening Daytona 500, but he only had like a couple top 20s throughout the rest of the year. Then he joined Trackhouse last year, and he had some good runs, and he felt like this is where I belong. And so far, he's where he belongs, running up at the front for a team that is carrying the reins of taking over Chip Ganassi Racing. This team is going to win races in the near future. Not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. They're close. They just got to seal the deal. But it's so good to see these new faces running up towards the front. I've got a feeling we're going to see them continuously throughout the rest of the 2022 season. Number 3, Camber. Saw a lot of issues with Camber yesterday. Remember, this is a new repaved track. There's no tire wear anymore, but teams push the envelope as far as the Camber, particularly in the Chevy camp. As I mentioned, Ross Chastain, he had a tire failure and knocked him into the outside wall early in the race while leading the group. But he was able to overcome that and run his way back up to the front. Tyler Reddick, who's also still searching for his first career Cup Series victory, he had speed in his car yesterday. He led a couple of laps, but then in the middle of stage 2, he cut a tire. I think it was like on the outside lane, leading the second row of cars. He cut a tire in turn swing 4 and spun around and went into the traffic and taken out a couple of good race cars. Some of them were able to continue, some not so fortunate. But Tyler Reddick definitely had the speed in their car. They limped for a couple of laps, and then they brought out a late race caution late, and they just retired the car. And Ricky Stenhouse Jr., this type of racing, which is super speedway racing, he is really good at that stuff. He led a lot of laps yesterday. It looked like he had the speed. And then while running in the top 5, the same thing that happened to Reddick and Chastain happened to Stenhouse. He cut a right rear tire. He spun around into the pack and got hit by Austin Cindric and also collected Eric Jones and Kevin Harvick. Some of these Chevy teams really pushed the envelope as far as the right rear camber yesterday. Some took a little bit of a aggressive approach because they wanted to try to run up front and try to see what their tire pressures would be like, running up front instead of running behind cars. Some took a safe approach by not raising the camber as much. The Hendrick cars didn't have that problem whatsoever, but one of the 2 RCR cars had it with Reddick. One of the Trackhouse cars had it with Chastain. However, Chastain was the only one out of those 3 that actually was able to get the best out of it with a second place. Stenhouse unfortunately got knocked out, which was unfortunate because he had a fast race car. But unfortunately, these guys push the envelope as far as the camber. You're going to have these problems. So next time we come back here, probably don't want to do that again. Unless if you do and you want to take the risk of having another tire below, okay, that's your decision. Number 4, the action yesterday. This was the first time I mentioned at Atlanta, and we came not in the 670 package. We ran the Super Speedway package like we did at Daytona last month at Atlanta because of the increase in the banking and because of the racing grooves being narrowed a little bit compared to what we've had in the years past when the track was old and we hadn't repainted in a long time. And it provided a lot of intense, close racing yesterday. It was fun to see. I mean, there were guys changing the lead. We had the most lead changes at Atlanta Motor Speedway since 1982 at 42, 43, and Bobby Allison won that race, I'm pretty sure. We had 46 lead changes yesterday, and we had 20 different drivers. leading the race. I mean, of course, William Byron led the most laps, but there were a lot of other guys that were running up front leading. Kyle Busch was leading laps. Chase Elliott, the homeboy, was leading laps. Ryan Blaney was leading laps. We saw, as mentioned, Ross Chastain was leading laps. Reddick, Ricky Stenhouse, Bubba Wallace was leading laps. Kurt Busch. We saw a lot of guys. Kyle Larson led laps. Logano. These guys were just, there was so much competition yesterday with this super speedway type racing at Atlanta Motor Speedway. The first that we've seen at this track in a long, long time. And with the close racing and side-by-side action, which is the best we've seen in Atlanta in years, there also came a lot of big wrecks. At the first caution of the race, Noah Gragson, all by himself, just broke loose in 1 and 2 and hit the outside wall, which is very unfortunate. His first race for Colleague Racing and the limited race he's going to run that 16 car this year. Then, as mentioned, we had the wrecks with Ross Chastain hitting the outside wall, Reddick ricocheting into the traffic after he cut a right rear tire and took out guys like Logano and Larson and other guys. Some of them were able to continue. Kurt Busch was part of that wreck, and he finished third. And then we had on the last 2 laps in stage 2, Kyle Larson getting pushed from behind by Denny Hamlin. He turned into Chase Elliott's door. Elliott continued on, but Larson went back in the track and took himself out, as well as Denny Hamlin, who still does not have a top 10 this season. And another one was Kyle Busch, Austin Dillon wreck towards the end of stage 1, where Kyle Busch kind of got Austin Dillon a little loose by, taking a little bit of air off the rear spoiler. Austin Dillon went around and went back into Kyle Busch. And also took up behind Ty Dillon, his brother, and he got bumped behind by Chase Briscoe. And of course, the last lap, we were guys, just battling for positions, and then Bubba Wallace checked up a little bit and pushed his best buddy Ryan Blaney up to the outside wall, and Briscoe as well. And then coming to the checkered flag, Suarez squeezed Chris Buescher down into Justin Haley, who's trying not to make a pass below that white and red line, is out of bounds, like the yellow line rule at Daytona and Talladega, and they went back into traffic and took themselves out, as well as Bubba Wallace, but they all crossed the start-finish line. So yeah, the action was really crazy yesterday at Atlanta. I don't think I've ever seen this kind of action at this track. We had the most cautions in the history of Atlanta Motor Speedway at 11 yesterday. It was just absolutely insane. And the racing this weekend in general with the Xfinity Truck Series was insane. It was like that at a lot of these races. They were packed together running pack racing. It was fun to watch. At times it was really good, and at times it was a little bit messy. But, Atlanta Motor Speedway wanted to put this package together to provide close racing, and they got it, and they hit it out of the park in a good way, and it was really close action all around. A lot of guys, just running up front, leading laps. It was good to see a lot of parity of different guys leading instead of just one guy running around the track all by himself, unrestricted. It was some good action. And number 5, Atlanta in general, overall thoughts about the racing on the new surface with this banking and with the super speedway package. Well, a lot of the fans on social media really liked it, and then there were some that didn't like it. The drivers' thoughts. Some liked it, some, they weren't really happy. Kyle Busch did not like it, really. He was like, Kyle Busch is Kyle Busch. He says whatever he feels, and he was not a big fan of this type of racing whatsoever. Chris Buescher, after getting turned on coming to the checkered flag, even though he got a top 10 finish out of it, he said, I miss the old Atlanta. Tyler Reddick said it was fun. Stenhouse said it was fun, even though he was upset about being out of the race because he felt like he had a car that could win. William Byron seemed to like it. And the thing about it is, the racing from the previous day at Saturday brought more fans, I think, to this race. That was the most fans I've seen in Atlanta Motor Speedway in quite some time because of this type of racing. So did it help the fan attendance and get their attention about how good the racing was and what they saw? Yes. But are there some people that thinking that we probably shouldn't be doing this type of racing in general? Yeah, and there's also people saying that we probably shouldn't be running 500 miles in Atlanta. We should probably be running 400 miles or 300 miles at the very least. We're going to come back here in July, and it's going to be a 400-mile race, 260 laps. But is that going to be enough? And there are some people that are wondering, should we try to run this race without the Super Speedway package? Let's try to run it with the 670 package. The big question is, what are the speeds going to be? Are they going to be a little bit faster because cars unrestricted run a little faster than the cars that, run restricted? Even though you say in groups at Daytona, Talladega, they're all running a big pack, oh yeah, they're running really fast than what you probably would by yourself. Yeah, when you run by yourself with the Super Speedway package, you're going to lose a lot of time. Now, if we didn't have this restricted package on these engines, then we would be seeing guys, going fast and spread out. And, there's not a lot of room in this racetrack to try to pass these lap cars, even though they made it work yesterday. There were some moments where I'm just like, when they're close enough, oh, this is going to be very interesting. But in general, I thought Atlanta was really good, and I felt like this was the best racing I've seen in Atlanta in years, even though the last time we were here on the old surface, the battle between the Busch brothers for the win was a lot of fun. It was a good send-off to Atlanta on the old surface. I felt like that this new racing yesterday was very polarizing, very exciting, very fun. Some liked it, some not so much. Everybody has their different opinion, but I thought it was fun. It was a lot of good racing, and let's see what happens when we come back here in July. Are we going to run this package? We will see, but I will say this. This should not happen at Charlotte or Texas, I don't think. Especially Texas, because the difference of banking 1 and 2 versus 3 and 4 and the PJ1 or the resident they put in those turns, probably not a good idea. So that's just coming from me. And Charlotte, I feel like it should stay this. It should be the 670 package. Let's try that before we jump to putting a super speedway package. I mean, I feel like 4 super speedways is enough. Let's see what happens again when we come back here in Atlanta in July. Also want to point out, again, a quick shout out to Corey LaJoie at a 5th place finish. The best finish ever for Spire Motorsports and for Corey LaJoie in general. This is his first career top 5. A nice pat on the back to Spire and Corey. They did a good job yesterday. And again, we saw a lot of different drivers running up front yesterday. It was a lot of fun. And also, shout out to NASCAR and Fox with Jeff Gordon back in the booth. It was good to see him and Clint Boyer and Mike Joy working together yesterday. It was a lot of fun. Even had John Smoltz, the Baseball Hall of Famer who works for MLB on Fox, joined the broadcast booth a couple times yesterday and was on the pre-race coverage talking to Georgia boy Chase Elliott. It was just good to see Jeff Gordon back in the booth. And next week, Tony Stewart's going to be with us at Circuit of the Americas to call the race. So it'll be fun to hear Tony and Clint go at each other again. So that was it for a fun weekend at Atlanta Motor Speedway, and next week we were off to Circuit of the Americas. The second time we've been at that track, of course, last year. We ran in the rain. According to the weather as of right now, it looks like we're going to run in the sun, and I think a lot of people are interested to see how the racing is going to be in the sun versus what it was in the rain last year. I feel like the rain racing last year was a lot of fun, but let's see how we do on a dry track. Biggest question entering this race: is the road course king going to come back to the top? And I'm talking about Chase Elliott. He's got 3 top 10s so far this season. He still does not have a top 5. Is he going to get a top 5 or even better, a win next weekend? He's the defending winner of this race. Will this new car bring other guys that probably don't have as much road course experience or much luck on the road courses up towards the front and benefit their driving style? We're going to find out. It's going to be a blast. I cannot wait to watch next weekend. It'll be a lot of fun to see what these guys do at COTA. So it'll be a lot of fun. So I hope you guys have a good rest of your week. Subscribe, like, and congratulations to William Byron and the 24 team. They are victorious at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Have a great week, everybody. Let's go racing!